All right, Kelley. It's good to see you.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for coming on the podcast. We've been talking about this for some time, so this is fun. To get started, I just want you to introduce yourself real quick and what. So this is fun because this is new as of recently, but like, what is your current job?
Great question, Mason. Great question. My name is Kelley Griggs. I am the host of StartUpNash and the founder of Britepeer.
Cool. And Britepeer is the new thing. So
Britepeer's
that's
the newest of the new.
That's so great. So
I probably shouldn't be talking about it, but I'm going to.
Well, we can say anything you want, and then we'll time when this is released whenever you want to, if that works.
That's perfect.
That's great. Okay, we'll get into Britepeer here in a second then. So StartUpNash, talk to me a little bit about that. I'm actually a part of the community as well. So that's how I got to know you, but talk about that a little bit. Like, what is it, and how did it come to be?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad. First of all, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so pumped to be talking about this. I think I should say first that I haven't really talked about StartUpNash in person. I'm just realizing this in person with another person, because all the ways I talk about StartUpNash is really through text. And that's important because StartUpNash started when I was looking for a job. I was trying to get back into the workforce and couldn't really go to as many events couldn't really be in person as much as I'm used to because I was a new mom.
Yeah.
So I was looking to get back into the workforce. I had my baby with me. And we had this, we were looking for childcare. We were facing a lot of the challenges that new parents face here in Nashville, but also nationally. And I was sort of sitting, in my room, wondering, wow, how am I going to connect with my community? It really can't be the same way as it was before. So can I use my strengths and my situation right now? Can I cultivate my network in a different way than people are used to? And if so, what does that look like? And then I remembered Slack as a tool. People talk on Slack. This was before the pandemic. This was 2018. So people work remote. People get on Slack. So I was like, what if I just made a group? What if I made a group? And I was already sending out a newsletter. It wasn't super consistent. And I thought also in tandem with making the group, I thought, okay, so I've got this newsletter where it's sort of a one-to-many communication. I'm talking to them or I'm talking about someone to my audience. What if everybody just talked together? Couldn't we get so much more done if we were all just talking together? So that was really the origin. That's where it started.
The reason you started it, first of all, with the challenge of being a new parent, that's hitting me in real time because I've been going to events a lot lately. I mean, mostly for obviously networking for our business and whatever, but like some weeks it's like 3 nights a week. I mean, I have a 5-year-old kid at home. Like these happy hours in town are usually like somewhere between 5 and like 7. It's like, I'm missing like dinner time and bedtime sometimes. And like it's been hitting me this last year. Like I don't love that.
Yeah.
So that totally resonates, like another way to connect with people, and you don't have to be away from family at the normal in-person events. That's what's so unique about what you created. Absolutely.
That was absolutely it. I thought, unless you're willing, and a lot of people are very willing to still have coffee with you, to get on a phone call with you when you've got your kids at home. And I know that it's really opened my eyes to what parents deal with day to day and how to connect with people in a way that's still effective, how to connect with people in a way that's still good for my family. It just made sense on StartUpNash. It made sense because, I thought this isn't going to change for me anytime soon. I love hanging out with my kids. And we all strike a balance between how much we're out and how much we're with our kids. But for me, it was just like, this is helpful. This is nice that this option is there. We just don't really take this option as much as we should. I bet a lot of other people are like me, where they're a new parent or they just don't have as much time as they used to. They still want to be involved. Let's have them be involved, and it can totally be virtual.
Yeah, and you've created what I think is really cool is like you're facilitating other people making connections too, right?
Yeah,
that's pretty cool to me.
Yeah. So great thing about StartUpNash, you get on there. It can be StartUpNash can be as simple or as in-depth as you sort of want it to be. It's a lot of StartUpNash is what you put in, you get out. At the end of the day, it's a Slack community. But the wonderful thing about StartUpNash, I think, is the access. So if you know Mason McSpadden is in StartUpNash and you want to know from Mason McSpadden how to start a podcast company, you can go into StartUpNash today and tag you, Mason McSpadden, and say, hey, man, I'm starting a podcast company. Do you have any advice? And you, even though you're really busy, you might be willing to give him 100%. Some advice.
100%. I also, I've met tons of people through your community, right? I met you first and then a lot of people through you. I also think that I talk about this on the podcast a lot, but that does speak to Nashville. So what does that mean to you, right? Like having like the Nashville community, because you've been a part of it for a long time and now you're a facilitator of startups in the area.
Yeah, this is also like a really important thing to me. This is sort of a cornerstone of StartUpNash. So Nashville is very open. I think the community is unique in that most people are willing to take a coffee with you. Most people are willing to talk to you in person, give you some advice, at least sit down with you. Most people. And StartUpNash, so I think that's one reason why StartUpNash worked. Also, there's this other competing mindset maybe that isn't as prevalent in Nashville, but is very prevalent in the like startup tech community as a whole. Lots of kind people in the greater startup tech community. Lots of wonderful people who would still sit down with you and be very open. But there's also this whiff of like exclusivity. There's a little bit of arrogance. There's some ego. There's some gatekeeping. There's all these sort of bad things. They're not necessarily like bad people, but some things that I would consider like not great practices that people do. And I don't think it's really always on purpose. I think it's like people want other people to sign NDAs the first time they're meeting because they're scared. Or, people make certain choices on their founders make certain choices on their cap tables because that's what they were told to do, or that's the easiest thing to do.
Sure.
So one really like important part of StartUpNash is like, hey, well, I guess it's more of a hypothesis of mine. If I created this super open community where everybody on it was willing to give back, was willing to share their lessons learned, was willing to be more vulnerable, could I help impact future founders and the way they're setting up their businesses to create more wealth within the community or more opportunity in the community? And so I really drive home no gatekeeping, exclusive. I mean, not exclusive, inclusive as possible. Anybody can join, whoever wants to learn about entrepreneurship, and really driving home the idea that entrepreneurship comes from anywhere. It doesn't have to be exclusive. It doesn't have to be this like old club where, the rich get richer. It can be anybody. That's a beautiful thing about entrepreneurship. And that's like, it's something that I learned when I came to Nashville. And it's something that I want other people to know that, like, I guess the most important thing here is I want other people to know, especially young people, that you can have access to some of these people, to some of these opportunities. You can learn. And not only that, but StartUpNash, among many other resources, is one way you can access those people.
I'm curious, where do you think that you're obviously very passionate about that topic in general. Where do you think that comes from? Like, is that just from your career, or, you know what I mean? Because you've worked in startups too, but like you're really wanting to lead the charge in building almost culture around how people relate to each other in startup environments. Like, where's that come from?
It's absolutely from my career. I started out in Nashville. I moved here in 2012. I thought I was going to go into graphic design and advertising, maybe an advertising agency.
Yeah.
I ended up being the marketing manager at a little media company called Southern Alpha. And Southern Alpha, my co-founder was Marcus Whitney. And at Southern Alpha, we wrote about startups in the Southeast. And I had an editor who's, at the time, his name was Walker Duncan. He got out there and started owning that beat. And at the time, other Nashville-based publications, the Tennessean was around, of course. The Tennessean was out there writing. The Nashville Business Journal was out there writing. The Scene, the Post, all of those groups were out there writing. But Southern Alpha offered this special little niche, and that was writing about startups and new business. Because at the time, it wasn't always the best story or it wasn't always like thought of to profile startups. And nowadays we profile startups all the time. Everybody knows about TechCrunch, et cetera, et cetera. Back then it just wasn't considered as newsworthy.
Wasn't as sexy maybe to some degree.
Definitely. So some publications just wouldn't do it. And I think Southern Alpha did a really great job at motivating other media entities in town and motivating new people to stand up and say, yes, this is a new company. This is very interesting. Here's their technology. Here's how much money they've raised. That said, I think part of this is coming from like my own chip on my shoulder. I was an outsider looking in. I was writing about the companies. At the time, I did not consider myself really a founder. It was hard for me to accept the title of co-founder of Southern Alpha. It seemed, I guess, silly in a way. Like it seemed like I was just starting out. How am I this founder or co-founder of this company? It was also just a media publication. It felt a lot of the times like, this is just a blog. Like, should I be calling myself the founder of this blog? So I was dealing with those kinds of things. Yeah,
I deal with that all the time. I think someone's been, the phrase has been coming around more, but like for me, I guess it's imposter syndrome. But I definitely, like, if I want to break down, like, do I think I'm, I don't know the word, maybe valuable enough to run a company? I'm not sure what it is. The answer usually internally for me is like, well, no. I go for it anyway, right? Because I have no issues just like going out there and doing things. But yeah, I mean, on the inside, I feel like that all the time. A lot of founders do feel like
that. Yeah. How do you deal with that? How do you find that
Yeah. I mean, practically, I do a lot of therapy, so we can start there. But yeah, I don't know. It's very difficult. Here's what is helpful. I'm learning to celebrate little small wins. So there was a day when Weld recruiting, not a soul knew about it except me and my brother Matthew. Now there are people that like reach out to us. Hey, I'm looking for work. Can you help me out? Or there's companies that'll come to us and say, hey, we need some help here. Can you help us out? And I try to remember like, there was a day where nobody knew who we were or wanted to use our services or nothing. And now there are people that know about us and they want to use us, and we can help them and serve them. So that's one thing, is I try to celebrate small wins in that way. In the same way, the StartUpNash Slack, there was a day when it didn't have one user.
There was.
And now it's got a lot. It's things like that.
There was. We were under 100 for a very long time.
Yeah, it's things like that I try to remember. Like, so we're doing something, right? Like, I may not be the best from like I know I'm pretty rough on like business things, but like something's going right,
Yeah.
So it's
something's going right.
Yeah,
that's a good way to look at it, because you're thinking, as you're writing, as you're talking to people, as you're producing content, as you're doing business with others. There's this feeling of like, yeah, I think I'm always questioning things, but there's also this sense of like, yeah, but I keep doing it. I keep getting up every day and I keep doing this, and it's fun and it's exciting, and and I get to hire people and all that fun stuff. So it is working.
Yeah, 100%. So back to you. So you kind of a little bit had this chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, I just felt like I was on the outside looking in.
Yep.
I felt like I was on the outside looking in.
I
And
get that.
a lot of that was self-imposed. It was like, I want to be part of this. This looks fun. I'm writing all these stories about other people. And I started just thinking, I could do this. I could do a pitch deck. I could raise money. I could have a product. What's so hard?
Yeah. Yes.
And in some cases I've found out it is extremely difficult. But in other cases, and what I want to inspire other people to do is, yes, it's extremely difficult, but if you know the steps and how to do it, and if you have a good idea and you want to test that idea in the market, come to StartUpNash. Come to StartUpNash. Or if it suits you better, there's a lot of other resources in the Nashville community. It's part of what makes Nashville great. Do Nashville Software School. Go to the Nash Tech events.
Yep.
Come see you.
Yep. Totally.
Go see Catherine Rickmeyer. Get your startup written about.
Yep.
There's a lot of cool. Go to the EC. Go to Launch Tennessee.
Yep.
Go to.
Like Greater Tech Council, National Tech
National
Council
Tech
events.
Council.
They do events all the time.
There's there's so many things I'm forgetting right now, but there's so many great resources out there for entrepreneurs today, and I want people to know about those resources. And I it doesn't matter if they know from them, about them from StartUpNash or not. I just want them to know they're out there, and if you want to do what I was doing, if you feel the way I was feeling, and you just need to learn. There's a lot of things you can do that, before you get your product out there. There's a lot of things to look at and people to learn from who could help you.
Yeah. Is it like, because I'm pretty new. You've been here longer than I have. I don't really know what to weigh it up against, and you definitely do. But are there way more resources now than 2012?
I think so.
Fair to say?
I think so. I think so. Back in 2000, you're gonna launch me into like a history of Nashville's tech startup scene. I'll try to keep it short. I
love it.
I won't talk about this too long.
We actually haven't had anything like that on this podcast yet, so I like that a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll try to keep it short. I'll try to keep it brief, and you might talk to somebody else who has a totally different point of view. So I would encourage that too.
Yeah.
But back in 2012, the challenges we faced were different, at least in my opinion. We had a really great hub, it was called the Nashville Entrepreneur Center. We started it back then, so I think it got a lot of initial hype, but they're still out there helping entrepreneurs every day.
Yeah, we're members there.
Oh yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. I had an office there back in the day. And the Nashville Entrepreneur Center was so interesting because the reason why I said had in the past tense, there's just so many more resources now, and they don't all live at the Entrepreneur Center. And it would be impossible for them to live at the Entrepreneur Center.
Right.
In my opinion, that's a sign of great growth. The Entrepreneur Center is still there. They still have resources. They're still serving tons of founders and entrepreneurs. There are also lots of other things.
Yeah, there's not the only one.
Yeah, they're not the only one. And if the things there are not serving a founder in the way they want to be served, that founder can go find a lot of other resources and places. So in my opinion, it's a sign of a really healthy community, that there's still this hub, that there's still this place for entrepreneurs to go, but then there's a lot of opportunity outside of that too.
Yeah, I agree.
So back then, basically, if you were in tech or startups in Nashville, you went to the Entrepreneur Center. And back then, Jumpstart Foundry had a space at the Entrepreneur Center, and Vanderbilt had a space at the Entrepreneur Center. And Southern Alpha, we were writing about startups. We had a space at the Entrepreneur Center. We were all there together every day, and there were founders pitching to investors. Now, it was a wonderful and is a wonderful community, but it was still a very small community. And everybody there was still this almost like this greater pitch to Nashville's business community and just regionally, that Nashville could be a place for startups and businesses to thrive. I think the business community was pretty much like there's not a long pipeline from like, oh, these are the startups to this is Nashville's wonderful business community. So maybe that was the first connection Nashville made. I'm not really positive, I'm not really sure about that, but like, it's not a far throw to say like, oh yeah, we really like startups and we really want to support Nashville's business community. Like that seems like it was an easier pitch. So the fact that all these small businesses had a home at the EC was a great real life representation of that. Cool. We're supporting the business community because we let all of these startups come to the EC and get all of these resources they need. So I think that was great.
Yep.
I think that was like a key building block of Nashville's startup and tech scene.
Yeah, almost like foundationally.
Absolutely.
In some ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So as things changed and got bigger, I think there was some, I don't really know when this happened because after I wrote at Southern Alpha, I went on to be a part of some startups myself as a product marketing manager and, just worked in marketing at a couple startups in the Nashville area. But at some point, things grew. You started to get a lot of other groups, almost like the EC of, I know there's I'm going to botch this, but I know there's a place in Franklin. I know that the Williamson County Chamber of Commerce has now startup resources. Right. Yes. And I'm going to get a call once this podcast comes out from my roommate in college, my great friend, Abby Bass. She works at the Williamson County Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, cool.
I got to shout her out because she's been talking about tons of resources for small businesses, startups, etc.
Yeah. That's cool.
So these other things started emerging. Again, in my opinion, another healthy mark of like, more people are interested in this. More people want to be involved. They have to be involved on their own terms. Not everybody's going to drive into downtown Nashville. It's great to have other resource hubs in different places in Nashville.
For sure.
And then I think the last thing was, hey, during the pandemic, we got a brand new wave of people coming in, and those people are brand new. They didn't know where the tech scene was. They didn't know where the startup scene was. And they almost created like a whole new layer, a whole new history, what will be history, for Nashville. And I think that is still a good thing. We're constantly, whether we see this in the moment or not, I think these layers of our community are sort of building on top of each other and creating this dynamic place. A lot of people have mentioned to me, hey, why is everything so siloed? Why are there so many different little groups? And my response to that was, well, yeah, we used to be all under one roof, all under one hub, but you start to get big and you start to need things outside of whatever the mainstream resource is. There's a place for that. There should be a place for that. That means the community is growing. That means we're providing more resources than before.
Sure.
To me, it's a very good thing to see so many different things for so many types of founders, so many types of businesses. It's just, in my opinion, that's a good part of Nashville's tech and startup scene. I want that to keep happening.
Yeah, you're 100% right, in my opinion, because it's like, it's the rising tide thing, right? Like, raises all ships. Same idea.
Same idea.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that that it's not just some ships.
Yeah.
And when you limit yourself to like only one or two resources, and the same thing, if you decide that something should be exclusive and you're just not letting a lot of people in, or something should be opaque or whatever, you might think, oh, the rising tide lifts all ships. But in reality, like only some people are benefiting from it. So like you're saying, just opening these resources up, getting as many people involved who want to be involved, it's really important. It's vitally important, I think.
That's great. Let's talk about, speaking of founders, your new thing real briefly. I'd like to get some clips around what is now your new company as of like a week ago or 2 weeks ago.
So full disclosure, have not incorporated yet.
TBD.
TBD. Yeah. That's great. Very, very soon. But so I have a new idea. This idea came out of StartUpNash. So I had the community first, and then I thought of this product from the community. And it's a product that I think could apply to every community and probably many organizations. it's called Britepeer, and it's a knowledge sharing platform. And what I mean by that is, for the sake of testing this product, and Mason, I do a lot of building in public. So disclosure, what I say on this podcast could totally
I love that.
could totally change.
I love that.
Could totally change.
That's happened a couple times on this podcast. One was with my wife. Anyway, something had happened, like we recorded on a Thursday, and she was like literally kind of being pretty vulnerable and was like, I'm actually thinking about quitting. She's in music.
Yeah.
On Saturday, she got another gig.
Oh my God.
So like things changed. Like that's what I love about podcasting is you can go back and be like, oh wow, that changed. And that's a great thing.
Yeah, this is going to date.
So
this
go
is
for
date
it.
horribly,
this is a safe space for that.
Okay, good. Okay. So knowledge sharing platform, I'm planning to start it on Slack as a Slack bot, but I don't want to stay on Slack. I want anybody to be able to share knowledge with anybody else. And what I mean by that is, look, we all have these communities. I have StartUpNash, and a lot of people are part of StartUpNash. But like individually, we have community. We have whatever our own individual sense is of our community. That could be on LinkedIn. It could be on a Slack group. It could be across multiple Slack groups. It could be email, newsletter. Could just be people we talk to every day, coworkers, etc., family. That's all part of our community. So I'm building this. It's almost like a knowledge base for your community. And I'm starting it as a Slack bot. So I'm starting it. I'm using community so loosely here because you could have a Slack community. And that's what I'm starting it for. But eventually I want it to be separate from, I think I'm just saying this out loud because I'm realizing that everybody's sense of community is very different. But right now, technically the way the product works is on Slack. So right now it has to be in a Slack community.
Sure.
So basically what it is you type in a question. For someone you could help, it would be like, hey, what are all the tools I need to start a podcast? So maybe somebody asks that in StartUpNash through my product Britepeer. The person who asks the question types in command Britepeer. They fill out their question. They say whether they are expecting an answer free or if they're willing to pay. They tag it under a category, and then they press send. Well, then Britepeer will send their request to everybody in my group tagged podcast expert or podcaster or something. So you'll get a DM, maybe an email, some notification saying, hey, someone from StartUpNash asked a question. They want to do a 30-minute session. They're willing to pay. What's your rate? What's your availability? So this is potentially a new revenue model for creators, for freelancers, for service providers.
Sure.
Potentially a new revenue model for people who just want to share information. Or the way we've always used StartUpNash, free knowledge share. If you're just willing to give back and you want to help somebody, I mean, one of the biggest problems in StartUpNash is people miss the notifications. So this is just a little way to connect with people on a more personal level, potentially to start a business relationship with them, but most of all, a new way to do knowledge sharing. And it could apply to businesses too. We just take out the paid part. Yeah. And you're asking, if you have a really huge business, the department maybe, but you don't know the person who you should be talking to, just ask Britepeer the question, and Britepeer sort of acts as this internal people knowledge base and gets your question to the right person. Yeah, that's cool. I may have told you this the other day when we were hanging out, but I immediately go to my kind of the blockchain groups that we're involved in, and that's the language they use in a lot of companies that are building in the Web3 space is it's just a culture of Web3 is like building community, but a lot of folks are building a product and then saying how do we get a community, and then how do we manage that community? I think it's pretty cool that you've actually done the reverse of that. You've already got a community, and now you've seen what the needs are and what's out there. Now you've built something for that. Yeah, it's super cool. And very, you told me, I think you told me that I'm
so
like,
Web3 of you.
yeah, I'm very Web3 adjacent.
You are. You would fit right in.
Yeah, there's a lot of people online who've been talking about community. I've been watching the people who I watch online are like Rosie Sherry, or what is her name? Oh my gosh, I'm like getting her. Rosie Land. She does community.
Okay.
She does a lot of community stuff online. She was part of an organization called Orbit. I don't believe she's with them anymore. She's doing her own thing, but Orbit is a tool set for communities like mine. I use it a lot. Who else? Sam Parr. Man, I'm thinking about all these people on Twitter, and I'm like, is that their name? You know?
Yeah.
But Sam Parr, I think that's his name. Sam Parr just did. He just announced a new community group called Hampton, and that's for founders. And I
feel like I've seen that.
Yeah, he's going very. The CEO of Vecteezy.
Okay.
He's doing it with him. The CEO of Vecteezy lives in Bowling Green. He's a local guy.
Oh, gotcha. Close. Yeah.
Sean Rubel. Anyway, I'm butchering all these names. I might have to edit this. But there's a lot of community stuff going on out there. People are super interested in community. And I often wonder why? Why am I so obsessed with this? Why did I do a community first? And I really think it just goes back to we're constantly trying to connect with each other. And I think we've discovered that like some days social media is bad. Some days we want super real advice. We need help constantly. We're looking for insights. But I think truly it goes back to my roots. Yes, I was looking at one time in my life to reconnect with my local business community. At the same time, I think I have a gift for connecting people.
Yeah.
And Britepeer is growing out of this gift that I have that I'd like other people to have in an automated way.
No, I couldn't agree more. I'm rooting that on. We're rooting that on. That's great. And yeah, you are. You're definitely operating what I would say in your giftings. This is, I'm everybody I know that knows you is super excited about it. So keep going.
Nice.
We're here for the changes. We're here for all of it.
Nice. And I guess I should throw in, I want to figure out a way for the community to be a part of it. Like, it's one thing to talk about, oh, you can spread knowledge, spread wealth.
Yeah.
I could talk about that all day, but I haven't figured it out yet. I'm just throwing it out there to you.
Yeah.
I want to figure out how the community can have a piece of it at the end of the day, because it would be so cool. Like, I don't think for me personally, success means something different to everybody. But if Britepeer ever becomes really, really big, and it would be cool if it did, but I don't know. But if it did,
it will.
I want to say, but Nashville's all with me. Like, all my friends are here with me. Everybody's here. We all did it, you know?
You're so Web3.
I don't know.
You're like creating a DAO over here.
I tried, but people did not like it. People did not like
It's
it.
just, I love it. Cool. So how can folks, we'll go ahead and wrap this up.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
has been so great.
Yeah.
How can folks kind of get in touch with you if they would like to learn more about StartUpNash and then later on Britepeer?
Yes. Great. Best thing to do is go to www.startupnash.com. You can join the group from there. Oh, I'm putting out a new website soon, so it might be updated.
Just send it. We'll link it in the
Perfect.
on Spotify.
It's still going to be startupnash.com. It'll be,
okay.
It's great. Britepeer. You can learn more about Britepeer through StartUpNash if you want, or I own the domain britepeer.com. It's BritePeer.
And your LinkedIn too. We'll tag your LinkedIn as well.
Great.
Cool.
Oh, one more thing I want to say. I think this kind of wraps it up nicely, but this is going to sound super cheesy. I should have put this somewhere else in the interview, but I forgot. So I'll say it right now.
Love it.
I think the most important thing I've learned through all of this stuff is, number one, gotta play to my strengths. And I want to tell people that too, especially young people. Just play to your strengths. Just do it. Like, whatever you're good at, lean in towards that, because you're going to discover something that makes it, that you can do in life that makes sense.
That's good.
If you lean into what you're good at. And
That's good.
Number two, I think life is way too short to spend time doing anything else, anything other than what you feel in your gut that you should be doing. And work with who you want to work with. For goodness sake, like find your people, like go out, find your people, do what you believe you should be doing, and do it as soon as you possibly can. I know that's not feasible for everybody. It might be only feasible at a certain time in life, but if that time and that opportunity ever presents itself, you have to take it. You just have to. That's
so good. That's a clip right there. Cut it. That's so good. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah, that's so good. Thank you for coming on, Kelley. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Cool.
It's been great. It's been great. Anytime.
Awesome. See you soon.
All right, cool. See ya.